What if I told you there's a place where the earth is still being born, where fire rises from beneath ice, and the ground you walk on is never truly still? What if I told you there is a place on earth where the ground beneath your feet is not still, but alive? A place where the planet is not finished, where land is still being created, shaped, and broken apart in real time. This is not a distant world. This is Iceland, a land where fire breathes beneath ice, and every step you take rests on a story that is still being written. As the first light rises over the horizon, Iceland does not reveal itself all at once. It emerges slowly through mist and shadow, as if the land itself is deciding how much it wants to show you. Dark shapes stretch across the distance, uneven, raw, untouched. These are not mountains carved gently over time. These are formations born from force. Because here, creation is not quiet. It is violent. Beneath the surface, deep within the earth, pressure builds constantly. Heat rises from places we cannot see, pushing upward, searching for release. And when it finds it, the result is not subtle. Lava breaks through the Zameen, spilling out in glowing rivers that reshape everything in their path. This is how Iceland was formed. Not slowly, but in moments of intensity repeated over millions of years. As you move across this land, the ground tells its story without words. Black volcanic rock stretches in every direction, sharp and uneven, as if frozen in the exact moment it cooled. There are no soft edges here, no gentle curves. Every surface feels deliberate, shaped by heat and time working together. And yeah, there is something strangely quiet about it. A silence that doesn't feel empty, but waiting. Because even when nothing is happening on the surface, everything below continues to move. This is what makes Iceland different. It is not a place you observe from a distance. It is a place you feel. The air carries a faint warmth in unexpected places. Steam rises from the ground in thin, drifting lines, disappearing into the cold atmosphere above. It is subtle, almost easy to ignore, until you realize what it means. The earth is breathing here. As the sun climbs higher, the landscape begins to reveal more of its complexity. What first looked like endless black terrain now shows variation. Layers of rock, cracks in the Zameen, textures that hint at different moments in time. Each layer represents an event, an eruption, a release of pressure, a moment when the earth could no longer contain what was building inside it. And each time, the land changed. This constant change creates a feeling that is difficult to fully understand, because no matter where you stand, you are never looking at something permanent. The here is temporary, even the ground beneath you. As the day unfolds, the scale of Iceland becomes more apparent. It is not just one volcano, or one eruption, or one moment of creation. It is a system, a network of energy.
You stand on the surface of Iceland, boots pressing into solid rock that looks still, permanent, unchanged. The wind blows across the open ground. The sky stretches overhead, clear and bright. Nothing here looks like it moves fast or changes much from day to day. But that is the lie the surface tells. Right beneath your feet, movement runs deep. It connects the furthest edge of the northern coast to the southern valleys, the highest peaks to the deepest valleys, linking points that look completely separate from above. This movement is never visible to the naked eye. It works in the dark, far below the rock you can touch, shaping the entire land from the inside out. This underground system never rests. It is always active. Most days, most years, it moves quietly, slow, steady, unnoticeable to anyone walking the surface. It shifts grains of rock, melts new magma, widens cracks a fraction of an inch every decade. But sometimes, it erupts. Sometimes, that long, quiet movement bursts out with overwhelming, unstoppable force that can reshape entire valleys in a single day. Nothing can stop it when it chooses to move that way. It leaves no part of this land untouched. Every inch of the surface you walk on has been shaped by that hidden network, connected to every other part through the deep dark beneath your feet. You lift your gaze and spot it on the horizon, a dark outline rising slow against the pale sky. Most people expect volcanic formations to tower over the land, sharp and aggressive, demanding attention. This one does not. It sits settled into the surrounding landscape, connected to every ridge and valley around it. integrated so well it feels like it has always been there. It does not dominate the terrain. It is part of the terrain. Here, power is not separate from the environment. It shapes the environment, becomes one with it, so you never see it as something alien or imposed. You keep walking toward it, and as you close the distance, the texture of the land resolves into sharp, clear focus. Small ridges cut across the ground. Hardened waves of lava roll out in front of you, curved and smooth, stopped dead mid-motion. Every formation looks almost fluid, even though every inch is solid, hard rock under your palm when you reach out to touch it. It hits you then, the clear truth of what you are seeing. This entire area was once flowing like water, molten and hot, moving across the ground with unstoppable momentum. Then it stopped. Suddenly, frozen in time, every movement locked into place, held still for hundreds or thousands of years. But this stillness is not forever. The same underground force that pushed this lava to the surface never left. At any moment, without any warning, that frozen movement can break free again. That is the quiet, constant tension that hums under every step you take across this land. The afternoon sun dips lower toward the horizon, and its harsh midday edge softens, wrapping around the formations in a warmer golden glow. The colors of the land begin to shift, like a canvas being repainted brushstroke by brushstroke. The solid black lava that looked uniform and flat under midday sun deepens into layers of charcoal and ash, faint streaks of deep red and gray peeking through where you never saw them. Shadows stretch long across the uneven terrain, crawling over curved lava ridges and filling small cracks between formations. The contrast between the light-touched surfaces and the stretching shadows sharpens, turning what looked like a static, uniform field of rock into a landscape of distinct shapes. Shapes that were hidden from you just an hour earlier. Patterns emerge, rolling waves and curved crests that trace the flow of the lava, marking every direction the molten rock moved when it was still hot and alive. You stop walking, let your gaze sweep across the expanse. Slowly, the old idea of this place as a fixed, dead, unchanging rock slides away. You see it now, clearly. This is not a finished landscape, carved once and left alone forever. It is a snapshot, a single moment in an endless story. This land once flowed, once burned, once reshaped itself. It is connected still to the deep movement that created it. And one day, it will move again. No part of it is permanent. Every inch is alive, changing, waiting. That is the truth of Iceland. A truth written in light and shadow, for anyone who stays long enough to see it.
Approaches. The atmosphere changes. The temperature drops, the air becomes sharper, and the silence deepens. It is no longer just quiet. It is still. But beneath that stillness, the same energy remains, unseen, unstoppable. The sky above begins to darken, and the first hints of twilight spread across the horizon. In this moment, Iceland feels almost suspended between states, not fully active, not fully at rest, balanced, but never stable. Looking out across this landscape, one realization begins to settle in. This is not a place that was shaped in the past and left behind. This is a place that is still becoming, still forming, still evolving. And that changes how you see everything. But because when the ground beneath you is alive, you are no longer just standing on Earth. You are standing in the middle of its creation.
You are standing on solid ground right now. Your weight settles into the rock beneath your boots. The rock is still cool from the night, hard and unyielding under your step. The air is cool, the horizon is still. Even the wind blows soft, barely stirring the edge of the horizon. Nothing moves fast enough to catch your eye. What if I told you that beneath the calm, silent surface of this land, there are rivers of fire moving right now? Not in some distant volcano across the sea, not in some prehistoric era millions of years gone, but directly beneath your feet, right now. Invisible, unstoppable, powerful enough to reshape every tree, every rock, every valley above it in a single sudden moment. This is not some fantasy of a restless earth. This is Iceland. Every step you take here sits on top of a system of fire, constantly in motion, never sleeping, never stopping. At first glance, you would never guess. Everything above the surface looks permanent, looks fixed, looks like it has been this way forever, and will stay this way forever. But that first glance is a lie. The power that can turn the world upside down is already moving, right under the soles of your feet. It never stops. It never sleeps. It only waits. Look out across the horizon. Dark volcanic rock stretches from where you stand all the way to the edge of the sky. It sits quiet, unchanging. It looks like it froze in place the day it cooled, and never moved an inch since. It feels solid under your step. No shake, no tremor, no obvious sign of what lurks below. You shift your weight, and it holds. You stamp your foot, and it does not give. The stillness wraps around you, so complete it feels almost permanent, almost unbreakable. But if you stop long enough and press your palm flat to the stone, you will feel it. A faint, steady warmth seeping up through the rock against your skin. That warmth is the first sign of what is happening miles below your feet. Deep below the crust, magma flows through hidden, cracked pathways. It does not rush the way a river of water rushes. It does not race or roar over banks. It moves slow, unhurried, constant. It presses forward against the solid rock walls around it. It builds pressure, ounce by ounce, foot by foot. It fills every empty crevice. It pushes on every weak spot. It never stops pushing. It searches, always, for any crack, any opening, any weak point that will let it release all the force it has stored. It keeps moving. It keeps pressing. It keeps building. The pressure grows higher every single day. One day, it will find its way out. Walk across these lava fields, step by step, and you will start to see the proof of this land's dual identity, written right into the rock at your feet. The ground is not smooth, not flat, not carved by wind or water into gentle shapes. It is twisted, it is folded. It ripples and crumples in patterns that feel almost alive, almost caught mid-movement. These shapes are not accidents. They are not random. Every twist, every fold, every jagged edge is a fossil of fire, frozen in the moment it stopped moving. Every formation you see around you was once liquid, once glowing hot, once flowing like a river across the land. It spread outward, slow and unstoppable, swallowing everything in its path, turning valleys into plains, turning plains into mounds, reshaping the entire face of the land in the space of days. Today, it sits still. It feels solid. It feels permanent. But that stillness is only a pause. The fire that created every stone around you did not disappear. It just moved deeper, kept building pressure, kept waiting for its next chance to break through. This is Iceland's true nature. A quiet, unchanging surface that invites you to trust its stability. An ever-shifting core of fire that never stops moving, never stops growing, never stops preparing to reshape everything all over again. You feel that faint warmth again, under your palm, against your boot. That is the fire, still alive, still moving, right where you stand. It has never stopped. It never will.
In their path, until the heat faded and the surface hardened. What remains is a frozen memory of motion. As the sun rises higher, the land reveals more of its hidden story. Cracks stretch across the surface, some thin and barely visible, others deep enough to hint at the space below. These are not just fractures, they are pathways, channels through which heat escapes, where the boundary between surface and underground begins to blur. In some places, a faint warmth rises from the ground, subtle but undeniable, a reminder that the fire below is never far away. In the distance, steam begins to lift slowly into the air, thin at first, almost like mist, then thicker as it rises, twisting and fading into the sky. It looks calm, but it is not. It is the Alarth releasing pressure. breathing out heat that has nowhere else to go. This constant release is what keeps the system in balance. But balance here is never permanent. As you move deeper into the landscape, the scale of what lies beneath becomes harder to ignore. This is not a single source of heat, not one isolated pocket of magma. It is a network, a vast interconnected system stretching across the land, linking distant points in ways that are impossible to see from above. And within that system, pressure is always building. Sometimes slowly, sometimes rapidly, but always moving toward a moment of release. As the day continues, imagine the journey of magma itself, rising from deep within the earth, carrying heat, energy, and transformation with it. It does not stop. It does not hesitate. It moves because it must, and everything above it is shaped by that movement. This is why the landscape of Iceland feels so raw, so unfinished. Because it is. Each formation, each field of rock, each crack in the ground is part of an ongoing process. Not a completed story, but a chapter still being written. As afternoon light spreads across the terrain, the textures become more pronounced. Shadows settle into the folds of hardened lava, revealing patterns that look almost like waves frozen mid-motion. You can trace the direction of flow. See where the earth once opened. Imagine the moment when heat broke through the surface, turning silence into chaos. And then, just as quickly, returning to stillness. This cycle repeats over and over again. Movement, release, stillness. But the stillness is never the end. It is only the pause before the next moment of change. As the light begins to soften, the land takes on a deeper tone. The black rock absorbs the fading sunlight, creating a landscape that feels heavier, more intense. The air cools, but the presence of heat below remains. Unseen, but constant. This is what makes Iceland feel different from any other place. You are never truly disconnected from what lies beneath. Every step is a reminder. Every breath carries the subtle influence of the earth itself. As evening approaches, the silence deepens once again. The wind slows, the sky darkens, and the landscape returns to its quiet state. But now, that quiet feels different, because you understand what exists beneath it. The movement that never stops, the fire that never fades. Looking out across the land, one realization begins to settle in. The ground beneath you is not solid in the way you once believed. It is temporary, a thin layer above something far more powerful. And, at any moment, that power can rise again. Because in Iceland, the story is not written on the surface. It is written in the fire below it. What if I told you there's a place where fire doesn't just meet ice, it hides beneath it, waiting. A place where the coldest, most silent landscapes on Earth are sitting directly on top of heat, powerful enough to tear them apart from below. This is not balance. This is tension. And nowhere is that tension more real than beneath the frozen giants of Iceland. At first glance, it feels impossible. A world of white stretching endlessly across the horizon, calm and unmoving. Ice thick enough to silence everything beneath it, a surface so still it feels eternal. This is Vatnajökull, one of the largest glaciers in the world, a frozen shield covering vast parts of the land. But what lies beneath it is anything but frozen. Deep below this massive ice cap, the same volcanic system continues to move. Magma flows, pressure builds, and heat rises just as it does in the open landscapes of Iceland. The difference is, here, it has nowhere to escape. At least, not immediately. As the first light spreads across the glacier, everything appears quiet. The surface reflects pale tones of blue and white, smooth in some places, fractured in others. Crevasses cut deep into the ice, revealing layers formed over time. It looks stable, but that stability is fragile, because beneath this frozen weight, fire is constantly pushing upward. As the day begins, imagine the moment when heat from below starts to intensify. Slowly at first, almost unnoticeable, the base of the glacier warms, ice begins to melt from underneath, and pressure starts to build in hidden spaces between rock and ice. Water forms, trapped, and as more heat rises, more ice melts, and that trapped water grows, but it cannot stay contained forever. This is where Iceland reveals one of its most dangerous secrets. When enough pressure builds, the glacier does not simply melt, it breaks, suddenly, violently. As the sun climbs higher, the surface of the glacier begins to show subtle signs of what lies beneath. Small shifts, slight movements, cracks that widen just enough to hint that something is changing. These are not random, they are signals, because the balance between fire and ice is never permanent, and when it shifts, the result is explosive. Imagine standing on this frozen surface as an eruption begins beneath you. You would not see lava immediately. You would not hear the roar of fire. Instead, you would feel something else. Movement, the ground beneath the ice rising slightly, pressure pushing upward, heat building in a way that cannot yet be seen. Then comes the release, not as fire, but as water. Massive floods of melted ice burst from beneath the glacier, rushing outward with unstoppable force. These are not ordinary flows. They are sudden, overwhelming, and capable of reshaping entire landscapes in moments. This is how the hidden eruptions of Vatnajökull reveal themselves, not always through visible fire, but through destruction carried by water. As the day continues, the contrast between
Your boot sinks half an inch into the frost before it hits solid ice. You shift your weight, and the sound of the crunch echoes out, then vanishes, swallowed whole by the silence. There is no wind here, no bird call, no movement beyond your own steps. You pull in a breath, and the air is so cold it stings the back of your throat, every inhale sharp enough to make you pause. You lift your head and look ahead. The glacier spreads out before you, flat in the foreground, rolling up into low ridges further out, pale blue-white under the high, bright sky. You decide to climb the nearest ridge to get a clear view of the landscape. The ice crunches under each step, loose frost sliding under your boots, and your legs burn a little by the time you pull yourself over the crest. You stop, hands on your knees, catching your breath, then straighten up to scan the horizon. The glacier does not end. It stretches out past the next ridge, past the one after that, all the way to the hazy line where ice meets the pale sky. It is too big for your eye to fully process all at once. There is no sign of human touch, no mark of recent change. It looks exactly as it must have looked 100 years ago, and 1,000 years before that. It feels endless, untouched, almost permanent. The deep, cold silence settles back around you, wrapping the entire landscape in stillness that feels unbreakable. The high, bright edge of midday softens as the afternoon pulls on. The sun drops low enough to angle across the ice, turning the pale blue-white surface into deeper, richer shades of saturated blue. You shift your weight again and squint at the cracks crisscrossing the ice in front of you. Before, they look like thin, faint lines on a solid block. Now, shadows settle into their depths, and you see they run far deeper than you expected. Some are 10 feet wide, some plunge down out of sight. No bottom visible, even when you lean in to look. You hold your breath and watch one of the larger cracks. For a long minute, nothing changes. Then you see it. A shard of ice on the edge shifts, just a fraction of an inch, and clatters down into the dark below. The sound bounces off the ice walls, echoing for seconds before it fades. This is not a single solid mass. It is a network of shifting pieces, moving slowly, constantly adjusting to every force that acts on it. The cold from above holds it rigid on the surface, but the heat from beneath pushes up, pulling and shifting every layer from the inside out. What looked permanent is just a temporary covering, a barrier, thin and fragile in its own way, holding back something far more powerful than the ice above it. The tension that was invisible before becomes clear now, humming just under the surface of the frozen world you stand on. The sun dips lower behind the distant ridges, and evening creeps across the ice quickly. The temperature drops 10 degrees in 10 minutes, and the air grows sharp enough to make your exposed cheeks ache. You rub your cheeks to chase away the stinging cold, and lift your eyes back across the glacier. Every movement on the surface slows. The small shifts that you caught in the afternoon stop being visible to the naked eye. The entire landscape settles into a deep, absolute stillness that feels even more complete than the quiet of midday. It would be easy to think everything has stopped, that the tension has drained away, that the balance has held for another night. Then, you shift your weight again, and you feel it. A faint, low vibration moving up through the ice, into your boots, up your legs, settling in your chest. It is gone in a second, but you felt it. Nothing has stopped. The magma still creeps and shifts beneath the bedrock. The heat still rises, seeping up through the rock into the base of the ice. The pressure keeps building, inch by inch, degree by degree, every single second. The ice on top only traps it, holds it in, delays the inevitable release. This balance has never been stable. It has only been waiting. At any moment, without warning, the ice can give way, and the balance can shatter apart all over again.
Separately, they are connected, locked in a constant struggle, shaping the land together in ways that are both beautiful and unpredictable. And that changes how you see everything. Because the calm surface is not the full story. It is only the outer layer. And beneath it, the earth is still burning. So as you stand on a glacier that feels ancient and unchanging, one truth becomes impossible to ignore, that even the coldest places on earth can hide unimaginable heat. And when that hidden force finally rises, nothing above it can remain the same. What if I told you there's a place on earth where silence feels louder than any sound, where direction disappears and the land offers no clues, no comfort, no sense of scale? A place so empty that even time seems to slow down, as if the world itself forgot it exists. This is the interior wilderness of Iceland, and at its core, the vast, unforgiving expanse known as the Highlands of Iceland. At first, it doesn't feel real. The land stretches endlessly in every direction, a sea of black and gray shaped by ancient eruptions. No trees, no cities, no signs of life, just open space, raw, exposed, and untouched. This is not a place designed for people. It is a place defined by absence. As the first light of day spreads across the highlands, the landscape reveals its true nature. What looks flat from a distance begins to shift into subtle rises and dips, ridges of hardened lava, layers of ash carried and settled over centuries. Every surface tells the same story. Fire came through here, and nothing fully returned. Walking into this environment, the first thing you notice is the silence. Not the kind you find in quiet places, but something deeper. A silence that feels complete, as if sound itself struggles to exist here. Even the wind feels distant, because there is nothing for it to move through. As you continue forward, the sense of direction begins to fade. There are no landmarks that stand out, no clear path to follow. Everything blends into everything else. The horizon feels close, yet unreachable. This is how the highlands challenge you, not through immediate danger, but through disorientation. Because when the land gives you nothing to hold on to, your sense of place begins to break down. As the sun rises higher, the details of the terrain become sharper. Fine particles of volcanic ash cover the ground in some areas, soft underfoot, shifting with each step. In others, jagged rock dominates, uneven and unforgiving. This constant change in texture makes movement unpredictable. There is no rhythm to walking here, no consistency, just adaptation, step by step. And with every step, the isolation becomes more real. There are no sounds of life, no distant movement, no signs that anyone has passed through recently. It feels untouched, but not in a peaceful way. In a way that reminds you how fragile human presence is in a place like this. As the day continues, the scale of the highlands of Iceland becomes overwhelming. It is not just one desert, but a network of volcanic landscapes stretching across the heart of Iceland. Each section slightly different, but all connected by the same emptiness. And beneath that emptiness lies the same force that shaped everything before it. The volcanic system still exists here, even if it is not visible. Heat still moves below. Pressure still builds. The difference is, here, the surface shows what happens after the fire fades. This is what remains. As afternoon light spreads across the land, shadows begin to define the breadth. Terrain more clearly. What once looked flat now reveals subtle depth. Layers of ash shaped by wind, ridges of lava frozen in motion, patterns that feel almost like waves stopped in time. It becomes clear that this land was once in motion, violent motion. But now, it waits. And that waiting creates a different kind of tension, because you begin to understand that this silence is not permanent. It is the space between events. As you move deeper into the highlands, the feeling of isolation intensifies. There is no escape from the horizon, no variation to break the view, just distance, endless distance. And within that distance, something changes inside you. Your awareness sharpens. Every sound becomes noticeable. Every movement feels significant, because in a place where nothing happens, anything could. As the sun begins to lower, the landscape takes on a darker tone. The black volcanic ground absorbs the fading light, creating a contrast that feels almost surreal. The sky stretches wide above, untouched, while below, the land remains heavy, grounded, silent. This is where the highlands reveal their true power, not in what they show, but in what they take away: comfort, direction, certainty. And in their place, they leave awareness. As evening approaches, the temperature drops quickly. The air becomes sharper, colder, and the sense of emptiness deepens even further. There are no lights here, no signs of life returning, just darkness slowly settling over a landscape that already felt distant from everything else. And yet, beneath that darkness, the same truth remains. This land was not always silent. It was shaped by fire, by eruption, by forces that once moved with intensity and power. And those forces have not disappeared. They are only hidden, waiting. Looking out across the endless stretch of the highlands of Iceland, one realization becomes impossible to ignore. This is not just a desert of rock and ash. It is a reminder of what happens when nature reshapes everything and leaves behind only space. Space that feels empty, but is filled with the memory of everything that came before it. And as you stand in a place where direction disappears and silence takes over, one truth settles in completely: that sometimes the most powerful landscapes are not the ones filled with life, but the ones where life has yet to return. What if I told you there are places on Earth where the ground didn't just crack, it collapsed, leaving behind scars so vast they feel like openings into another world? Not mountains, not valleys, but something in between, a reminder of moments when the planet lost control of its own pressure. This is where the surface gave way, and what remained became something both silent and powerful, like the massive Askja caldera in Iceland. At first glance, it feels distant, not just in location, but in time, because standing at the edge of a caldera is not like standing on ordinary ground. It feels like you've arrived after something enormous has already happened, something that changed everything, and then left behind only its outline. As the first light reaches the edges of Askja, the scale begins to reveal itself slowly. What looked like a simple depression from afar expands into something far greater. The Earth opens into a vast circular formation, stretching outward in a way that the eye struggles to measure. This is not a crater formed by a single moment. This is the result of collapse. A chamber beneath the surface, once filled with magma, now empty. And when that space could no longer hold its own structure, everything above it fell inward. As you move closer, the edges of the caldera rise around you, forming a natural boundary that feels both protective and isolating. Inside, the atmosphere changes. The wind moves differently, sound behaves differently, and the sense of scale becomes more intense. It feels contained, but not controlled, because what created this space is still part of the system below. As the sun climbs higher, the details of the landscape become sharper. Layers of volcanic rock line the walls, each one representing a different phase of activity. Dark tones dominate, but subtle variations in texture and color reveal the complexity of what happened here. This is not just a hole in the ground. It is a record, a visible memory of pressure, release, and collapse. At the center, a still body of water rests quietly, almost perfectly calm. It reflects the sky above, creating a contrast between movement and stillness that feels almost unreal, because everything about this place suggests intensity. Yet what remains is silence. But that silence is not empty. It carries weight, because you know what it took to create it. As the day unfolds, imagine the moment when this caldera formed. The earth shaking, the pressure below reaching its limit, the sudden release of energy as magma escaped, leaving behind a void that could not support what was above it. And then, collapse. Not gradual, immediate. The surface falling inward, reshaping the landscape in a single, irreversible event. That moment is no longer visible, but its impact is everywhere. As you walk along the edge, the depth becomes more apparent. Looking down, the scale feels almost disorienting. It is not just deep. It is vast in every direction. A space that feels too large to every direction. A space that feels too large to fully understand from a single perspective. This is where Iceland reveals another side of its nature. Not just creation through eruption, but transformation through collapse. Because sometimes, what shapes the land is not what rises, but what disappears. As afternoon light begins to shift, shadows move across the interior of the caldera, highlighting its contours, its depth, its complexity. The still water at the center darkens, reflecting less light, becoming more mysterious. It feels like a boundary between what is known and what remains hidden below. Because even now, beneath this massive formation, the system continues. Heat still exists. Pressure still builds. The same forces that created this space have not vanished. They're simply waiting for the next moment of change. As the light softens further, the caldera takes on a different tone. The sharp edges become less defined. The contrasts fade slightly, and the entire landscape feels heavier, more grounded. It is no longer just a visual experience. It becomes something you feel. A sense of standing in a place shaped by forces beyond control. A place that exists because something immense once happened and could happen again. As evening approaches, the air cools and the silence deepens. The wind slows, and the vast space of the caldera becomes even more still, almost completely motionless. But now, that stillness feels different. Because you understand what lies beneath it. Not emptiness, but history and potential. Looking out across the ogromny expanse of Askja caldera, one realization becomes impossible to ignore. This is not just a scar left by the past. It is a reminder of what the Earth is capable of. A place where the surface itself gave way under pressure and revealed the fragile balance that holds everything together. Because when that balance breaks, the land does not just change, it transforms completely. And as you stand at the edge of something so vast, so quiet, and so powerful, one truth settles in with absolute clarity. That sometimes, the most dramatic forces on Earth are not the ones that rise into the sky, but the ones that pull everything downward and leave behind a silence that speaks louder than any eruption ever could. What if I told you there's a moment on Earth when silence doesn't just break, it explodes? A moment when the ground tears open, light floods into the sky, and the planet reveals a force so raw it feels unreal. Not history, not imagination, but something happening right now. This is the power of eruption in Iceland, where the Earth doesn't just move, it ignites. At first, there is nothing. A quiet landscape, still air, the kind of calm that feels ordinary, almost forgettable. Dark volcanic ground stretches outward, unchanged, stable, silent. But beneath that silence, pressure is building, slowly, unseen. As the first signs begin, they are easy to miss. A faint tremor beneath the allard, a subtle shift that passes almost unnoticed, the kind of movement that doesn't demand attention yet. But then, it grows. The ground begins to pulse with energy, vibrations spreading outward like a warning. Cracks form across the surface, thin at first, then widening just enough to reveal something deeper. Heat, light, movement, and then it happens. The allard splits open, not gradually, but instantly. A line of fire erupts from the ground, glowing with an intensity that transforms everything around it. Lava bursts upward, not as a slow flow, but as fountains of molten rock, shooting into the air with force and precision. This is not destruction without purpose. This is creation in its most powerful form. At places like Fagradalsfjall, these eruptions do not just change the land, they reveal how it is built. As the day unfolds around the active eruption, the landscape becomes something entirely different. The sky fills with light reflecting off molten surfaces. The air shifts, carrying heat that can be felt from a distance. Sound takes over, a deep, constant roar. Not chaotic, but steady, like the earth itself is breathing faster, releasing what it can no longer contain. The lava begins to move outward, flowing across the land in thick, glowing rivers. It does not rush. It advances with purpose, unstoppable, shaping everything in its path. Rock melts, surfaces disappear. New the earth forms in real time. This is the moment where time changes. Because what you are seeing is not past or future, it is now. As the eruption continues, the contrast becomes overwhelming. The surrounding landscape remains dark and still, while the eruption itself burns with intense brightness. Fire against shadow, movement against stillness, creation against what already exists. And in that contrast, the power of Iceland becomes undeniable. As the sun rises higher, the details of the eruption become even more visible. Lava fountains reach upward, then fall back down, feeding the growing flows below. The zameen around the fissure glows faintly, heated beyond what the eye can fully measure. Every second, the landscape changes. New layers form. New shapes emerge. What existed moments ago is already gone, replaced by something entirely new. And yet, there is a rhythm to it. A pattern within the chaos. Because even this intense release follows the rules of the system beneath it. Pressure builds. Release occurs. Balance is restored. Temporarily. As afternoon light spreads across the erupting land, the colors shift. The bright orange of molten lava contrasts sharply with the deep black of cooled rock. Steam rises where heat meets cooler air, creating shifting clouds that move unpredictably across the scene. It feels alive. Not in the way we understand life, but in a way that cannot be ignored. Because this is the planet expressing itself. As the eruption begins to slow, the intensity changes. The fountains lower. The flow becomes more steady, less explosive. But the movement does not stop. It never stops, immediately. Because even after the most dramatic moments pass, the Earth continues to reshape itself. Layer by layer, flow by flow. What was once liquid begins to harden. Surfaces cool, darken, and settle into new forms. And just like that, a new landscape exists. As evening approaches, the light fades, but the glow of the lava becomes even more striking. Against the darkening sky, the eruption stands out with a clarity that feels almost unreal. The zameen still burns, still moves, still creates. And in that moment, everything else feels distant, because nothing compares to the raw force of what you are witnessing. As night falls, the eruption continues in its own rhythm. The sky above is dark, but below, the land remains illuminated by its own energy. A reminder that even in darkness, the Earth does not rest. Looking out across the glowing flows of Fagradalsfjall, one realization becomes impossible to ignore. This is not just an event, it is a process, a cycle that has shaped this land for millions of years, and will continue long after this moment ends. Because in Iceland, eruptions are not the exception. They are the reason the land exists at all. And as you stand in the presence of something so powerful, so immediate, and so real, one truth settles in completely. That creation is not always quiet. Sometimes, it arrives as fire, breaking through the surface and reminding you that the Earth is still very much alive. What if I told you that after the fire fades, the story doesn't end, it disappears underground? That beneath the hardened surface of this land, entire worlds exist in darkness, shaped by rivers of lava that once moved like liquid light, hidden, silent, and untouched by the sky. These are the places where the Earth remembers what it once was. Welcome beneath Iceland, into a world few ever truly see. As the first light of day touches the volcanic fields above, nothing suggests what lies below. The surface is quiet again, black rock cooled into stillness, sharp edges frozen in time, silence stretching across the horizon. But hidden within this hardened skin are openings, subtle, almost invisible unless you know where to look. Entrances, not just into caves, but into the path the fire once took. As you descend into a lava tunnel like Raufarhólshellir, the world changes instantly. Light fades, sound shifts, and the sense of space becomes unfamiliar. Above ground, everything felt open. Down here, everything narrows. The air is cooler, heavier, carrying a faint echo that follows every movement. Each step resonates through the tunnel, bouncing off walls shaped not by erosion, but by flow. Because these tunnels were not carved slowly over time, they were formed in moments. When lava once rushed through this space, moving beneath a hardened surface, creating pathways that remained long after the flow stopped. As your eyes adjust to the darkness, the details begin to appear. The walls are uneven, textured, sometimes smooth, sometimes jagged. In some places, the rock curves gently, as if it remembers the direction of movement. Because it does. This entire space is a memory of motion. As you move deeper, the silence becomes more complete. Outside, sounds disappear entirely, replaced by a stillness that feels almost absolute. But even in that silence, the space feels alive. Not with movement, but with presence. Because everything around you was once part of something far more intense. As the day continues above, time feels different below. Without sunlight, without shadows shifting across the land, there is no clear sense of passing hours, only space, and the awareness of where you are. Deeper inside Raufarhólshellir, the tunnel widens, opening into larger chambers where the ceiling rises unexpectedly. These spaces feel almost like hidden rooms, formed naturally, yet carrying a structure that feels intentional. Here, the scale becomes more apparent. This is not a small feature. It is part of a larger network, a system of underground pathways that once carried fire across distances you cannot fully see from within. And suddenly, the idea of the surface changes, because what you walked across earlier was only the outer layer. As afternoon unfolds above ground, the light filtering into the entrance begins to shift, but deep inside, nothing changes. The darkness remains constant, unbroken, unaffected by the world above. This separation creates a different kind of experience. One where you are not observing the landscape. You are inside it, and that changes your perspective completely. As you continue forward, subtle formations begin to appear, shapes created as lava cooled in place, drips that hardened mid-fall, surfaces that formed layers as heat gradually faded. These are not decorations, they are records, each formation marking a specific moment when movement slowed, when heat decreased, when the flow transitioned from liquid to solid. A timeline, written in stone. As evening approaches above, the tunnel feels even more isolated. The connection to the outside world becomes distant, almost abstract. And in that isolation, a realization begins to form. This place is not just hidden, it is preserved. Because while the surface continues to change eruptions, weather, time reshaping everything down here, much of it remains the same. A snapshot of a moment that ended long ago, but never disappeared. As you turn back toward the entrance, a faint light appears in the distance. Small at first, then gradually growing, pulling you back toward the surface. And with every step, the contrast becomes clearer. Darkness to light, enclosure to openness, stillness to movement. Emerging back into the open air, the landscape feels different than before. The same black volcanic fields stretch outward. The same silence fills the space. But now you understand what lies beneath. Not emptiness, but depth. A hidden layer of history, shaped by fire, preserved in darkness. Looking out across the land of Iceland, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The surface only tells part of the story, because beneath every hardened field of lava, there are pathways, memories of movement, hidden worlds that once carried the very force that created this land. And as you stand between what is visible and what remains unseen, one realization settles in completely. That some of the most powerful stories on Earth are not written in what we can see, but in what exists just below, waiting in silence to be discovered. What if I told you the Earth doesn't just move beneath Iceland? It breathes? Not in a way you can always hear, but in a way you can see, feel, and smell. A place where the ground exhales heat, where the air itself carries the weight of something rising from below. This is not just landscape. This is a living surface, constantly releasing what it cannot contain. Welcome to the geothermal heart of Iceland, where the planet never truly rests. As the first light of day reaches the steaming fields of the Hverir Geothermal Area, the scene feels almost unreal. The ground is stained with shades of orange, yellow, and deep earth tones, as if the land itself has been painted by heat. Steam rises in thick columns, drifting slowly into the cold air. At a distance, it looks soft, almost like clouds touching the surface. But up close, it is something else entirely. The air shifts. The temperature changes suddenly, pockets of warmth rising from the earth in unpredictable patterns. The smell becomes sharp, heavy with sulfur, a constant reminder that what you are standing on is far from stable. This is not a place of stillness. It is a place of release. As you move across the geothermal field, the ground begins to change beneath your feet. Some areas feel solid, while others appear softer, almost fragile. Small vents open across the landscape, each one emitting steam, each one connected to the same system below. They are everywhere, not isolated, but part of a network. As the sun climbs higher, the movement becomes more visible. Mud pools begin to bubble slowly, thick and heavy, rising and collapsing in a rhythm that feels both random and controlled. Each bubble forms, stretches, then bursts, releasing heat and gas into the air, over and over again, a cycle that never stops. This is the Earth releasing pressure in its quietest form, not through eruption, but through constant motion. At Hverir Geothermal Area, the land does not need to explode to show its power. It reveals it in persistence. As the day unfolds, the scale of the geothermal system becomes more apparent. Steam vents stretch across the landscape, some small and subtle, others larger, releasing powerful bursts that rise higher into the sky. The ground feels alive in a different way than before, not through sudden change, but through continuous activity. Because even when nothing dramatic is happening, everything is still moving. As you walk further, the earth seems to shift in color and texture. Minerals carried by the heat below rise to the surface, creating patterns that feel almost unnatural in their intensity. Bright yellows, deep reds, burnt oranges, colors shaped not by light, but by heat and chemistry working together beneath the surface. Each section of the land tells a different story, a different balance of elements, a different level of activity below. And yeah, all of it is connected. As afternoon light spreads across the steaming the earth, the contrast between heat and cold becomes... You step across the edge of the Hverir Geothermal Area, and the first thing you notice is the cool wind on your cheeks. It moves soft and steady above the rocky ground, carrying the sharp tang of sulfur that pricks the back of your throat. You lift your face to it, and for a moment it feels like any other cool afternoon in the highlands. You take one step forward, then another, moving toward the faint glow of stone around the hidden vents below. The temperature changes before you see the vent. One foot on cool rock, the next foot sinks into a blanket of hot air that hits your calves like a thrown blanket. It rises fast, climbing your thighs, your chest, wrapping around your neck, until the cool wind on your face feels miles away. You step back, half by instinct, and the heat drops just as fast. The cool air returns, wrapping around you again like nothing happened. No two steps hold the same temperature. The air layers itself, thin bands of cool sitting above thick bands of rising heat that shift and warp as you move. The light bends through these layers, making the distant rock shimmer and shift, like it's liquid instead of solid. There is no single steady condition across the entire field. Everything changes based on where you stand, how you move, how close you get to the vents that feed heat up from the earth below. The unpredictability settles into your bones before you see anything else. This is not a static place. It shifts with every breath you take. You pause your steps, boots planted on cracked, dry geothermal rock. You hold your breath to listen. After the rush of temperature shifts, at first, you hear nothing but the faint wind. Then the low, steady sound seeps into your awareness. It comes from the bubbling mud pools scattered across the flat ground. It starts soft, almost buried under the wind. The closer you step, the more distinct it gets. A slow, repeating glub-glub, a quiet, pulsing rhythm that never speeds, never slows. You can feel the vibration of it up through the soles of your boots, a faint thrumming that matches the pulse in your wrists. It's not loud, it never rises to a roar, but it is constant. It fills the empty silence not with noise, but with the weight of something alive. This is not the absence of sound. It is the steady presence of movement deep under the ground. You tilt your head to track the sound across the field. The sun has started to lower, and the cooling air thickens the steam rising from the vents. The steam drifts with the wind, rolling in soft banks across the landscape. 1 minute, the distant mud pools stand clear, dark, bubbling craters against pale rock. The next, a thick bank of steam rolls across, swallowing the entire view. You wait, and the wind shifts, and the steam pulls away, revealing the pools again, still bubbling in their steady rhythm. The landscape never shows all of itself at once. It cycles. Hide, reveal, with every shift of the wind. The sun dips lower, painting steam bank edges pale gold before the color bleeds into deep gray. Evening creeps across the highlands, air cools further outside the vent's reach. The contrasts sharpen. Pale white steam glows brighter against darkening rock. Heat rising from below cuts sharper against cooling air wrapping around the stone. You hold your breath unconsciously, watching a thick plume of steam rise slow from a deep vent, hang for a beat, then drift apart and dissolve into the sky. It rises like an inhale. It fades like an exhale. You blink, and you realize the rhythm repeats across the entire field, not just one vent. Every mud pool bubbling in slow time, every plume of steam rising and falling, every shift of heat pushing up through cracks in the rock, all of it moves as one. The entire landscape breathes in slow, steady cycles that outlast any human heartbeat, any single day. You can feel the pulse of it under your boots, the constant shift of heat moving from the molten core of the earth, up through rock, up through vents, out into the cooling air. Pressure builds, heat releases. The system balances itself without fuss, without hurry. There is no stop, no break. The movement never ceases. As you stand there looking out across drifting steam and darkening pools, one clear realization settles deep. This is not just rocky ground with hot pools. It is a living thing. It breathes. It moves. It carries energy from the heart of the planet out into the world, steady and unchanging in its constant change. Becomes impossible to ignore. This is not a place where the earth rests between eruptions. This is where it continuously expresses itself, in smaller, constant ways. Because not all power is explosive. Some of it is steady, relentless, always present. As night begins to settle, the steam remains visible against the darkening sky, rising like signals from the earth itself, a reminder that even in stillness, movement continues. And as you stand in a place where the ground breathes and the air carries the weight of what lies beneath, one truth becomes clear, that the earth does not need to break apart to show its power. Sometimes, it only needs to breathe. What if I told you that in a land ruled equally by fire and ice, the most extraordinary thing isn't the land itself, it's the fact that anyone calls it home. The first thing you notice when you look across Iceland's raw expanse is the lack of softness. There are no gentle rolling hills, no thick soft forests softening the edges of the world. Everything here is exposed. To the north, glaciers crawl down from the interior, their ancient ice grinding rock into powder as they move. They hold enough frozen water to flood entire coastlines, and they never stop shifting. Further south, volcanoes bubble beneath the crust, their black craters standing open against the sky, steam curling constantly from their vents. They have erupted within living memory, burying entire towns under ash and lava. Between them stretch endless black deserts, made of volcanic ash that blows with every wind. The sand scours anything that tries to take root. There are no landmarks that stay the same for long. Step away from the coast, and the wind can erase your footprints before you've taken 3 more steps. Every view is vast. Every force is unchallenged by human hand. And every inch of the land reminds you that nature answers to no one. The land here never sleeps. It never stops moving. Even on the calmest, clearest days, change happens beneath your feet. Tectonic plates pull apart a few centimeters every year. Hot rock shifts just below the crust. Steam vents open where there was solid ground a week before. Even the glaciers don't stay put. They surge forward faster than a walking pace some years, then retreat the next, leaving bare, unstable rock behind that can slide without warning. A storm can roll in off the North Atlantic in under 10 minutes. What started as a bright blue morning turns into whiteout conditions that erase every visible trail. The wind picks up ash and black sand from the deserts, and scours paint from buildings, rips roof shingles loose, and buries parked cars in a matter of hours. Volcanic activity can flare up without warning. Seismologists track tremors around the clock, but even their best data can't always predict when a new eruption will start. One winter, a small fissure opened overnight in a remote valley, pouring lava across a dirt access road that had been used for decades. By morning, the road was gone, replaced by a half-mile stretch of glowing hot rock that took months to cool enough to cross. No place here stays the same. No routine is guaranteed. Any stability you build can be upended in a single day, a single hour, a single sudden shift of the earth that no one saw coming. And yet, people still build here. They don't build against the land. They build with it. Scattered across the vast, shifting expanse are dozens of small communities, tucked into valleys and along fjords, each one rooted in the land, not in spite of it, but because of it. You see it in the small, daily moments that make up ordinary life here. A fisher pulls his boat onto a shingle beach at dawn, checks his nets against the wind, and sorts his catch for market. A child waits at a roadside bus stop, steam curling from their mug as they watch glaciers glint on the horizon. A farmer walks the line of geothermal pipes that heat his greenhouse, checking for leaks in ground that shifted just last winter. The road that was swallowed by lava a few years back, it was rerouted within a month, further from the active fissure. No outcry, no fight. Just a calm adjustment to the new shape of the land. No one here pretends they can control the earth. They just learn to read its signs, to move when it asks, to build flexible, steady lives that fit around its changes. Peace here isn't the absence of change. It's the acceptance of change, carried out one small choice at a time. This is the extraordinary force of Iceland. Not fire, not ice, not storms, but the quiet, steady resilience of people who choose to call this wild, shifting land home. They don't fight nature, they live with it, and that makes them stronger than any force the land can throw at them.
Most of the world has built its idea of survival around one simple rule. To live, you must control. Control the land. Control the weather. Force the environment to bend to your needs, your plans, your timeline. For most places, that works well enough. But that rule does not apply in the harshest, most unpredictable landscapes on Earth. Any attempt to dominate these lands cracks quickly. It breaks. It fails. Structures built against the earth crumble when the ground shifts. Systems designed to overpower the wind shatter when the storm arrives. Dams built to hold back floodwaters burst when the rain keeps falling for weeks on end. Walls built to block shifting sand get buried in a single season. A life built on control cannot survive here. This is not a life of control. It is a life of adaptation. The communities that have lived here for generations do not fight the land. They do not try to bend it to their will. They observe it. They learn from it. They build their lives around it, not against it. Because survival here is not about strength. It is about understanding. Strength will crack when the earth moves. Understanding will keep you safe. It teaches you when to move, when to stay, when to prepare for what comes next. No amount of brute force can replace the slowly gained quiet knowledge that comes from listening to the land. As you walk through these settled areas, the connection between people and the land becomes visible in every choice. Every structure is built to work with the land's natural patterns, not against them. Homes are anchored low to the ground, shaped to let strong winds slip around them instead of fighting their force. Foundations are reinforced to absorb small shifts in the earth, not resist them. Roofs are sloped to shed heavy winter snow and built to let the sun warm the interior through the cold months. Roads do not carve straight lines through hills or valleys. They follow the natural contours of the land, winding along ridges and dipping into gullies, following paths that have worked for generations. Every choice feels intentional. Nothing is placed by accident. Because any small mistake in this landscape does not just cause inconvenience, it can threaten survival. As the sun climbs higher, daily life unfolds in quiet, steady rhythms. People move through their routines without rushing. Every action carries quiet awareness. They check stored supplies, repair structures along the shoreline, note changes in the wind that signal a coming shift. Most people assume modern technology exists to control nature, but here it serves the same ancient goal of understanding. Small, low-power monitoring systems track volcanic activity, shifting weather patterns, and movement in the earth. They send information to every community member, letting them adjust their plans and prepare before any change arrives. Technology does not bend the land to human will. It deepens the connection between people and what the land is doing. This is modern life, fully aligned with ancient, unchanging forces. Afternoon light spills golden across the rolling terrain, and the contrast between human work and wild land snaps into sharp focus. From the edge of the largest settlement, you can see the clear line where built space ends and the untamed land begins. The small clusters of homes, the winding paths, the quiet routines of daily life, they all fit into a tiny corner of a vast, unbroken expanse. Mountains rise in the distance, their slopes still holding snow from last winter, their peaks wreathed in thin plumes of volcanic smoke. Plains of dark volcanic rock stretch between ridges, cracked and shifting, untouched by any human hand. Rivers cut through canyons, their courses changing year by year, unchanneled, unregulated. The scale difference is not just visual, it is visceral. You can feel how small human life is here, how completely it is nested within something far larger, far more powerful than anything people can build. This does not feel like weakness. It feels like clarity. These communities do not hide from the scale of the land. They do not pretend to own it or master it. They take only the small space they need and shape their lives to fit within the rules the land has already set. The possibility of sudden change is always present, but that presence does not paralyze them. It gives their lives balance and purpose. This is the lesson that stays. Life is not meant to be controlled. It is meant to be lived, in alignment with the world that holds us. The wind off the ice cap hits you before you see the glacier. It cuts sharp, carries the cold of thousand-year-old ice straight into your bones. There is no mistaking it. Nature's hold on this land is undeniable. It dominates every line of the landscape, from the black sand beaches crashing under Atlantic waves to the smoking craters that dot the interior, to the glaciers that creep slow and steady down volcanic slopes. Most people assume such dominance must be oppressive, a force that crushes anything that tries to take root here. That assumption is wrong. This dominance is not crushing, it is defining. It does not smother life, it shapes how life exists here. Every root that pushes through volcanic rock, every bird that nests on the cliff edges, every creature that survives the long, dark winters, all of it grows in the shape the land gives them. This is not a land that bends to the will of what lives on it. It is a land that makes what lives on it bend to it, slowly, steadily, turning adaptation into survival, and survival into something that fits perfectly into the landscape's wild rhythm. It is one of the most remote inhabited places on the planet, cut off from the rest of the world by miles of open ocean, and isolation is written into every part of its identity. Every form of life here grows around that isolation, shaped by it, defined by the unyielding power of the land that holds it. You leave the coastal roads behind and drive further inland, away from the clustered settlements near the shore. The distances between any sign of human habitation stretch longer and longer. One farm disappears over the horizon, and 20-30 miles can pass before you spot another. The wind picks up, raw and unbroken by trees, because there are almost no trees here to soften its force. It howls across open volcanic plains, whips sand into the air, cuts at any exposed skin. The ground shifts under your tires in places, still new after the last eruption, still settling into its new shape. Storms can roll in faster than you can react, turning clear blue skies to whiteout in less than 20 minutes. Temperatures swing wildly, from mild sun to freezing sleet in the space of an hour. All that intensity makes you think nothing can hold on here, that any life that didn't flee would have been worn away. But you're wrong. If you stop the car and cut the engine, you'll hear it first. The distant bleat of sheep, grazing on the sparse, tough grass that grows between the rocks. Look harder, and you'll see a small cluster of buildings, tucked into the lee of a hill, sheltered from the worst of the wind. That's one of the distant communities, miles from the nearest city, cut off from the world by miles of wild open land. Life doesn't shout here. It doesn't push back against the land to make a big statement. It continues, quietly, steadily, day after day, season after season, fitting itself around the land's unpredictable moods, holding on against the intensity, persisting where most would give up. As evening creeps across the open plains, the harsh edges of the landscape soften, the sharp cutting wind slows to a cool breeze, and the golden low sun wraps around every hill and crater. The vastness that felt intimidating during the day now feels calm, quiet, almost gentle. Small windows flicker to life, one by one, in scattered clusters of buildings. Each is a tiny point of warm yellow glow, stretching out across the darkening land as far as the eye can see. This is where the human presence feels most tangible, not in concrete roads or massive developments that carve up the land. It feels strongest here, in these small, scattered points of light. It is not the strength of domination. It is the strength of endurance. As full darkness settles over Iceland, the connection between people and this place grows deeper, more clear. This land is constantly changing. Volcanoes erupt, glaciers shift, storms come and go without warning. Stability is never a given here. No one can take tomorrow for granted. Living here is not just routine, not just a daily list of chores to check off. It becomes a relationship, a constant back and forth between human life and the raw natural force that shapes the land. People don't fight it. They don't run from it. They adapt to it. They listen to it. When you stand looking out over all those scattered distant lights, one truth becomes impossible to miss. The true strength of this place is not just in its wild, unforgettable landscapes. It is in the way people choose to exist within them. They don't try to control every outcome. They don't try to escape the uncertainty. They choose to stay. They choose to adapt. They choose to understand that life here is a partnership, not a fight.
Powerful. And as you stand in a place where fire, ice, and the earth continue their endless cycle, one truth settles in clearly, that sometimes the greatest resilience is not found in overcoming nature, but in learning how to live alongside it. What if I told you this entire land is not finished, not even close? That everything you've seen, fire, ice, silence, collapse, and breath, is not history, but a preview of what's still being created right now beneath your feet? A place where the ending doesn't exist, because the story is still forming in real time. This is Iceland, and it is still becoming. As the first light of a new day returns, the landscape feels familiar, but something subtle has changed. Not in shape, not in form, but in perception. After everything witnessed here, the land no longer looks still. Even its quietest moments feel temporary, like pauses between events rather than final states. Because nothing here is final. Not the lava fields, not the glaciers, not even the silence. As the morning spreads across the horizon, the same volcanic terrain stretches outward: black rock, frozen flows, ancient scars of eruptions that once reshaped everything. But now, you don't just see them as formations, you see them as moments. Moments that ended, but never stopped influencing the present. Each layer of hardened earth beneath your feet is a chapter of movement. Each ridge, each crack, each valley is evidence that this land has never stopped rewriting itself. And it still is. Deep below, the same forces continue to circulate. Heat rises, pressure shifts, magma moves through unseen pathways, just as it always has beneath places like Fagradalsfjall, where the surface can still split open without warning, revealing fire beneath calm ground. And that is the truth of this land. Stillness is only temporary agreement. As the day unfolds, imagine standing once again on the vast volcanic plains. The same winds move across the surface. The same distant mountains frame the horizon. The same light touches the black earth. But your understanding has changed. What once looked like emptiness now feels like structure. What once felt permanent now feels conditional. Because every part of this land has been shaped by cycles: eruption, collapse, cooling, and renewal. Over and over again. Even massive frozen systems like Vatnajökull exist within this cycle, slowly shifting, melting, reforming under pressure that never fully disappears. And beneath it all, the same engine continues, not visible, not silent, just constant. As afternoon light spreads across the landscape one final time, the contrast between what is stable and what is alive becomes clearer than ever. The ground looks solid, but it is built on motion. The mountains look ancient, but they are still changing. Even the air feels temporary, shaped by heat rising from below and cold descending from above. Everything is interaction. Nothing exists alone. And in that realization, the entire meaning of Iceland shifts. It is not a place of extremes. It is a place of processes. Fire does not defeat ice here. Ice does not erase fire. They exist together, constantly negotiating space, constantly reshaping the same ground. As evening approaches for the final time in this journey, The sky softens into deep tones, and the land begins to quiet once again. But now, the silence is different. It is not empty. It is aware, because you understand what it contains. Hidden heat, frozen memory, ancient collapse, living pressure, all layered together in one continuous system that refuses to stop evolving. And as night finally settles across Iceland, the landscape becomes a silhouette against the fading light, dark, vast, and still. But even in that stillness, you no longer see an ending. You see continuation, because nothing here ever truly finishes. Eruptions return, glaciers shift, ground breathes, valleys change. And beneath it all, the same forces keep moving forward, shaping what comes next without pause or permission. As the final image fades, one truth remains above everything else. This land was never meant to be completed. It is meant to be lived within its transformation, and that transformation never stops. So when you think of Iceland now, you no longer see a destination on a map. You see a process still in motion, a world still being written, a place where even the ground beneath silence is never truly still, because it is always becoming something new. What if I told you the real ending of Iceland isn't a moment you'll ever see, because it hasn't been written yet? That even now, as you think this story is complete, the ground beneath Iceland is still shifting, still heating, still preparing its next chapter in silence. You can't hear emotion you can't stop? Because the truth is simple. This land does not finish. It continues. As the final stretch of this journey unfolds, imagine standing once again in that in-between world where nothing feels fully stable. The air is still, but not empty. The ground is solid, but not final. The horizon looks permanent, but it isn't. Everything here carries a sense of not yet finished. Even the oldest formations, the vast lava fields that look like they belong to another planet, are not frozen endings. They are paused moments, evidence of something that moved, then stopped, but could start again under the right conditions. This is the rhythm of Iceland, not beginning and ending, but cycling. As the last light of day stretches across the volcanic terrain, the landscape begins to soften in tone. Shadows grow longer across the black earth, distant mountains fade into silhouettes, and for a brief moment, everything feels still enough to believe it might stay this way. But that belief doesn't last long here, because even silence has history in this place. Beneath the surface, deep systems continue their work without interruption. Heat rises slowly through fractures in the Earth's crust. Pressure redistributes itself across unseen pathways. The same energy that once created eruptions, like those at Fagradalsfjall, is still present, just not visible at this moment. It never fully leaves. It only changes expression. As night approaches, the land becomes darker, but not less active in meaning. The absence of light does not reduce its presence. If anything, it makes it feel deeper, more layered, more uncertain, because now you are no longer reacting to what you see. You are aware of what you cannot see, and that changes everything. The frozen expanses of Vatnajökull still exist in this darkness, slowly shifting under their own weight, responding to forces beneath them that never stop moving. Even the largest ice systems are not still. There are slow conversations between cold and heat, between pressure and release. Nothing here is static. Everything is negotiation. As the final hours of this journey settle in, the idea of destination begins to dissolve completely. Iceland stops feeling like a place you arrive at and becomes something closer to a continuous process you enter. A system that doesn't care whether you are watching it or not, because it is not performing, it is existing. And that existence is ongoing. As you imagine the land in its quietest moment, there is still movement beneath it. Not dramatic, not visible, but present, like a heartbeat that never fully slows down. Heat rising, rock shifting, water circulating beneath frozen layers. The same invisible mechanisms that shaped ancient eruptions are still in motion today, and they will be tomorrow, and long after that. This is why Iceland feels different from almost anywhere else on Earth. It doesn't just show you landscapes, it shows you time, in motion, not as something that passes, but as something that builds. As the final darkness settles over Iceland, the world becomes quiet again. But it is not the silence of absence. It is the silence of continuation. A pause between changes, not an end to them. And in that quiet, one realization becomes unavoidable. Nothing you've seen here is finished. Not the fire, not the ice, not the land, not the systems beneath it. Everything is still in motion, even when it looks still, and that means the story is not over. It is simply waiting for its next shift. Because in a place like this, endings are an illusion created by perspective. Step back far enough, and you see only continuity, cycles instead of conclusions, processes instead of points. And as the final image fades into darkness, what remains is not a destination, but an understanding. That the Earth is not something you observe as complete. It is something you witness mid-creation. And in Iceland, more than anywhere else, that creation is still happening, quietly, endlessly, and without permission. What if I told you the final truth about Iceland is not what you see, but what you stop assuming? That this land of fire and ice was never meant to be understood as finished geography, but as a living process that refuses to settle into a final form? Even now, beneath Iceland, the story is still being written in silence, pressure, and heat you will never witness directly. Because there is no last page here, only continuation. As this final reflection deepens, imagine standing once more on the edge of everything you've seen so far. The black volcanic fields stretch outward under a fading sky. The air is still, but carries memory. Every ridge, every crack, every hardened flow of lava feels like a sentence from a language the Earth has been speaking for thousands of years. And yet, none of it is complete. Each formation is temporary in the scale of geological time. What looks ancient is only a pause between movements. Even landscapes shaped by powerful eruptions, like those connected to Fagradalsfjall, are not fixed monuments. They are snapshots of activity and progress. The illusion is stability. The reality is motion. As the last light drains from the horizon, the land becomes darker, but not less alive in meaning. Shadows spread across the terrain, not hiding it, but revealing its depth. Without bright light, the textures of the Earth feel more honest, rough, layered, built from countless overlapping events that never fully erase what came before. Nothing here resets. Everything accumulates. As night fully settles, the silence returns. But this silence is not empty. It is dense with history, with heat that still moves underground, with ice that still shifts under pressure, with rock that still holds the memory of flow. Even massive frozen systems like Vatnajökull are not static structures. They are slow-motion responses to forces beneath them, constantly adjusting, constantly negotiating with the warmth below. And that is the pattern everywhere in this land. Balance that never stabilizes, equilibrium that never locks. As you imagine the full scale of Iceland from above, it no longer appears as a collection of separate landscapes. It becomes a single connected system. Volcanoes, glaciers, geothermal fields, lava plains, all parts of one continuous mechanism. Fire does not belong only to eruptions. Ice does not belong only to silence. They interact constantly, even when no dramatic event is visible. And that interaction is the true identity of this place. As the final hours of this journey stretch into deep night, something subtle becomes clear. Iceland is not trying to impress. It is not performing extremes for observation. It simply exists in a state of ongoing transformation that happens whether it is seen or not. That is what makes it powerful. Not spectacle, but persistence. As darkness surrounds Iceland completely, the land disappears visually, but not conceptually. Even without sight, you now understand what remains active beneath it. Heat rising through fractures, pressure redistributing below crust, ice adjusting to internal shifts, rock slowly reshaping over unimaginable time. None of it stops, none of it waits, and none of it ends. Because in a place like this, endings are only surface-level interpretations. They belong to what you can see in a single moment, not to what the planet is actually doing. Zoom out far enough, and every ending becomes a transition. Every collapse becomes a transition. Every collapse becomes a beginning. Every eruption becomes a reconstruction. The Earth here does not close chapters. It overlaps them. And as the final silence of this journey settles in, one truth remains steady beneath everything else. This land is not a finished creation. It is a continuous negotiation between forces that never stop moving. Fire shaping ice, ice shaping fire, rock recording both. And the result is not stability, but evolution. Slow, constant, unavoidable. So when you think back on Iceland now, it is no longer a destination you visited through words or images. It becomes something else entirely, a reminder that the world is never truly still. That beneath every calm surface, something is always happening. and that even when nothing seems to change, everything still is. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed exploring Prague as much as I enjoyed guiding you through it. If you found this travel guide helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more beautiful destinations from around the world. Got a favorite spot in Prague? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, safe travels, and see you in the next video.